Standing by on the line now is our friend Lanny Davis. Lanny, how are you this morning?
Just fine. I was going to take a shower before going to work, but I decided I would wait for this interview and then take my shower.
Yeah, I see what you're doing.
Not
there.
sure how to take that.
I don't know. I think I've been
okay.
insulted there.
We do the same
Good
when
morning.
we're done with you, Lanny.
All right.
Good morning, guys. I always want to make you laugh.
Thank you very much.
I'm so unhappy that...
No, well, let me ask you this question, because, you're president, the guy that you like, the guy that you support, that Barack Obama guy, he wants to raise the minimum wage to $10.10. Now, the CBO goes out and does a little study on this. And on one side, they say, hey, you know what? If you do raise the minimum wage, for the Democrat side of it, there's 900,000 people that will be listed out of poverty. But there's another side. The other shoe to drop is that 500,000 people will lose their jobs, and some 300 million Americans will suffer to some degree because, guess what? They're going to pay more for the goods and services that they buy because we've raised the minimum wage. So, it's the thing I want to ask you about is that the president comes out and he does these things that sound very aspirational. We need to help the poor people. But then, nothing happens in a vacuum. And when you do this, you find out, when you dig in, you find out, if you help those poor people, you're going to be putting 500,000 people, 500,000 people out of work. And is this a trade that you would take if you're president of the United States?
First of all, it's a good debate. We've had the debate for about 100 years since the minimum wage was first introduced by Teddy Roosevelt. And it was about $1.10 an hour, and people made the same exact argument. And there is a reasonable case to be made that people at the low income level may be laid off or won't be hired because you raise the minimum wage. So over about 100 years, we've had this debate, and society has decided, about two-thirds of the American people right now have said, we'll take the trade-off, we'll raise the minimum wage, and all of us will have to pay a little bit more, and maybe profits will be a little bit less. But we got to give people who are working for a living above the poverty level and wages. But it's a reasonable debate. I agree with you that we shouldn't be attacking the wealthy. People who put capital at risk deserve to have a return. I'm a capitalist. But I'm in favor of raising the minimum wage because over a long period of history, it benefits society to have people who work for a living earn above the poverty level.
Well, what do you say then to the 500,000 people who lose their jobs?
Well, those statistics have been used for years, and about 100 years, actually, since Roosevelt first introduced Teddy Roosevelt. And the answer is I don't believe those statistics because the owner will raise prices, and all of us will have to pay a little bit more.
Well, you say you don't believe those statistics.
Minimum wage, and that's really the answer, I think, historically. But it's a reasonable argument. I worry about it. I'm not delegitimizing it.
You say it's you don't believe that statistic, but what's interesting is that the Democrats, they believe the statistic that says nearly 1 million people will be listed out of poverty, but we don't like this other statistic, so we don't believe it.
No, well, one is a direct effect, the other is an indirect effect, and I said it is a legitimate concern. We've had it for 100 years, and we had it when people were being paid about 50 cents an hour, and we raised the minimum wage. We expect the whole society to pay the tab through higher prices.
Good morning, Lanny.
Good morning.
Remember Kathleen Willey?
I do remember from a long time ago. It was about 16 or 17 years ago. I'm sure you're still relitigating.
Well, she was
moved on,
she was a friend of Bill and a friend of Hill, and not so much anymore. She made allegations against the president, pretty harsh ones about the president trying to have his way with her and force his way on her in the Oval Office. And she's in the news again today because, Bill Clinton's behavior back in the good old days of the 90s is back in the news since Hillary Clinton may be running for president. I want you to listen to something she said on Megyn Kelly this week. First, she said Hillary Clinton is the war on women, and then followed up with this.
She has choreographed every single investigation and every terror campaign against every single woman, practically, who she thinks might be a problem. And that's how she handled it. How can you be a champion of women's rights and turn around and do what she's done to women like me? It just doesn't make sense.
It's a fair question, Lanny, isn't it?
It's not a fair question if it's based upon a speculation. She has no fact in that sentence. And I really don't want to address somebody 17 years ago who's back on television. I hope she had moved on and gotten a new life.
But it's not a false accusation because, but Lanny, we do know. But no, because I don't want you to trash Kathleen Willey here.
Excuse me. I said I hope she moved on to get a new life.
That's pretty close to trashing her. I hope she got a new life.
Excuse me. if you're going to interrupt me, don't mischaracterize me. I did not trash her. I said I hope she would move on. It was 17 years ago, but I did say there was no fact in what she just said, and I wanted to add the American people have moved on. This show, and I'm sorry to say, I like Megyn Kelly. Megyn Kelly hasn't moved on from 17 years ago. Most of the American people would ask the question about Bill Clinton, what about peace and prosperity, 23 million jobs, and a 65% approval rating do you not like?
Can you guarantee that Bill Clinton, if he is the spouse of the President of the United States, the first dude, as you like to call him, can you guarantee that he won't have an extramarital affair during Hillary Clinton's term?
Well, I think I can guarantee that if Hillary Clinton were a man, you wouldn't be asking that about his wife. I also can't guarantee about your private life. And the American people don't do that sort of a question. They'd say private life is not my business.
Oh.
They gave him a 65% approval rating.
So just like in
after
France
the
right now.
So if we're having this conversation in 2016, then whoever's running will be president, because the American people don't care about this except talk shows.
So the Clinton message to the people like Kathleen Willey and other people who have raised allegations is move on.
Well, I started out by not trashing, by respecting somebody's feelings. And if that's her feelings, if Megyn Kelly thinks it's newsworthy to rehash this 17 years ago, and if you guys do, I respect that.
Lanny, with all due respect, you called
the American people do not agree with you by every poll
Lanny,
ever taken.
let's be real. With all due respect, you called Kathleen Willey a liar, and you said you hope by now she's got a new life.
Actually, again, you put words in my mouth. Which is really the one thing that.
Lanny, you said there's no facts in what she said. That's the same as you said there's no facts in what she said. That's calling her a liar.
We're always civil. I didn't call her a liar. I said she didn't state a single fact.
Well,
that's a fact.
Okay.
She speculated. That doesn't mean she's a liar. She was speculating about what the first lady back then did or didn't do.
Well,
she doesn't have any facts to support that, and that's all I said. So let's be civil, guys.
All right.
Always
civil,
use the word
Lanny.
liar, and if I say something, I disagree. I don't use the word liar. I didn't use it about any other prior president or anybody else. I wouldn't use it on your program.
All right, we got to leave it there.
Always good to
but
have
Lanny,
you.
I think it is fair to ask these questions, given the fact that he could become the first dude, and then Hillary. It's fair to raise these questions if she's going to run for office.
I enjoy doing this show because you're always fair with me. Even when you're mean, you're fair.
Enjoy your shower, Lanny.
All right. I think I need